Yes.
Good morning, Vinod. All right. We are just shy of chapter 56 in I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. And they're having a very interesting conversation. And he because he's asking some very fundamental questions like why? Why are we interested in realization? Why do this practice? If all these things are as you say they are, why should we do anything? Right? And so I'm going to just start at the top of the page today. He says, the questioner asks or says, it will take much time if I just wait for self-realization, right? Maharaj says, what you have to wait for when it is already here and now, right? So this is that very interesting element. And I don't know what to do with that statement that we're already realized. I've worked around it and I've formed a practice in that regard, sort of around it. But it's something I have to say that I don't fully understand exactly. Like, well, how can it be so inaccessible and so present? How can I be sitting on gold and looking for gold at the same time? Right? And so, but Maharaj keeps coming back to it and keeps saying it and keeps establishing it, and it's got to be linked to faith at some level. Somehow, a lack of faith disallows a certain amount of seeing on our part. That if you really don't believe something's there, or if you really don't have a solid conviction that something's there, then you're not going to see it. You're not even going to look for it there, really. And an interesting dichotomy. So he says, what have you to wait for when it's already here and now? You have only to look and see. Okay, so this is our only task in spiritual life is look and see, right? That's why there's so much focus on attention. He says, look at yourself, at your own being, right? So sit quietly. Look at that. Who are you, right? How is this whole thing going on? Not just being caught up in your jobs and your routines and your to-dos and your purposes and points, but to step aside from all that and just look at the whole setup, right? And just ask or just look very carefully. Look at yourself, at your own being. You know what you are, and you like it. Abandon all imagining, right? So those things like the not here, not now, those are all imagining. When he says imagining, he's telling you anything that's not here, not now, abandon it. Put it out of your mind so it doesn't take up your mind time. When it's in front of you, then be present with it. But if it's not present with you, don't keep the story going. Don't nurture the line of narrative, right? Abandon all imagining. That is all. Do not rely on time. Do not rely on time. That's a very interesting thing to say. Because abandoning time that means don't rely on a goal. That would be a component of time. Don't have a goal and don't do it for. That would also be a part of time, right? Don't give a purpose to sitting down and doing your practice. It's a matter of just simply looking and seeing what's here and what's now, and seeing it very clearly with no story attached, right? Do not rely on time. Time is death. Who waits dies, right? So there really is an immediacy to this moment. This moment is everything. There's nothing outside of this moment. So do not count on your future. Do not count on your past. Count on this present and what's in it. God is in it as much as he will ever be in any moment. So there will be nothing changed. That's what Mother says. What do I grow horns when one realizes God? It's like, no, it's just suddenly an understanding, a realization that just hits you because you're watching it very closely. And suddenly all of the paradoxes line up and you're like, ah, right? Life is now only. Do not talk to me about the past and future. They exist only in your mind. The questioner says, well, you too will die. Maharaj, I am dead already, right? I'm not a body, I'm not a mind. I'm not attached to them. Physical death will make no difference in my case. I am a timeless being. I am free of desire or fear because I do not remember the past or imagine the future. Where there are no names and shapes, how can there be desire and fear? With desirelessness comes timelessness. I am safe because what is not cannot touch what is. Right? This is that very deep knowledge, or a deep. He's deeply convinced. Let's put it that way, right? Of the unreality of the changing, and he has a deep and abiding understanding that the conditions of this world do not affect him. Right? That he is an observer of them. They happen to the sensor he's using, right? It's like on television. He's sitting and watching a TV. You can choose to be afraid. You can get yourself hypnotized into thinking that the TV show is real and get there all nervous, but yet you'll still watch it. Why? Because at the behind it all, you know it's not real. You know that you are safe in your living room, and so you'll enjoy the fear, you'll enjoy the drama, enjoy all of the stuff happening in the narrative. But at the end of the time, you know that you're safe. It's just entertainment. You're just enjoying it. Even though it's odd that we enjoy being scared. It's odd that we enjoy being sad, but we do. We watch sad movies about broken relationships. We watch war movies, about people dying. It's like there is a level of entertainment in it if we know that it's not real, right? And if we understand that we're not affected by it. And so he's really teaching us something here. Be engaged in life. Go ahead and get hypnotized into the game, but enjoy it. Don't think that you can actually be affected by it, right? Those bombs going off on the screen are not going to harm you. So if you enjoy the drama, but don't let the fear become real, right? And so this is really what he's telling us. Learn to live life with this understanding it can't touch you. It's not real. Everyone that you know is going to die, and that has always been a promise. There is not going to be any surprise when it happens. Don't be surprised when it happens. Accept it already. Accept it already. And when it happens, you've already accepted it. Don't be surprised by it. Don't be saddened by it. Because if you live with that awareness, then you live accordingly. You live accordingly. You know this person is going to go. So you enjoy the time with them. It's the sweetest time you can have, but it's always with the knowing, hey, this is going to go. And you let it go. It's not sad that it's going to go. It's part of life. The sun disappears every day. We do not mourn it, right? It's like it's just part of the life. It came up, it goes down. So he's saying, learn this and understand these. There's a couple of things. One, I am timeless, right? That I'm outside of time. So don't let that become a primary concern for you. I am safe, right? These things that rise and fall cannot touch me. They can present themselves to me. I'll see them. I'll know them informationally, but they can't reach across the gulf to the oneness, to that unchanging absolute. I'm not affected by them like that. Stop all imaginings, right? So anything that's not here and now, let it be not here, and let it be not now, right? And be where you are. So just from this paragraph, he's got quite a few good teachings. He says you feel unsafe because you imagine danger, right? We talked about that a little bit the other day. My mother was a big worrier, and, always sure that her three boys were going to walk off the cliff or fall in the cactus or fall over backwards or break an arm. That was always the concern. And I just remember as a frustrated teenager just turning her one day and just saying, "Mom, why do you always imagine the worst is going to happen and then be afraid of it?" I said, "If you're going to live in a world of imaginings, why don't you imagine a world where nothing goes wrong?" Right? Instead of imagining a world where everything's trouble all the time, why don't you imagine a world where things mysteriously work out all the time? And then stop worrying, right? It's like I can't take you white knuckling your arms every time your children walk up to a fence near a cliff, you know? And so this is how it is in this life. Stop imagining bad things for yourself. Stop being afraid of things that ultimately cannot touch you. Look at what you've gone through in your life already, right? Think of all those exams that you suffered over in college. Where is that suffering now? How is the effect of it even now? It's like what? It's found its place in life. It fell in line. Even the ones you did terrible on, you don't even remember them actually, most of them, you know? And so live with that kind of detachment. Understand when the moment gets intense, step out of it for a second. Say, hey, wait a minute. What's making this moment intense? Because it's not usually what's in the moment that's making it intense. It's usually what you're dragging into the moment that isn't in the moment. The not nows, the history behind it, and the not heres, right? The people who yelled at you, the people who loved you, the people who don't love you, right? It's always the not here, not nows that are making the here and now intense. So leave them out and just be present, right? And when you're sitting there taking the exam and you're like, oh my God, you're so nervous. Why are you nervous? Because you're imagining not doing well. Well, don't not do well. Just sit there and focus and do the best you can. There's nothing else to be done. So don't consider anything else. Do your best and keep going. He says, if I am safe because what is not cannot touch what is. You feel unsafe because you imagine danger. Of course, your body is, as such is complex and vulnerable and needs protection, but not you. Once you realize your own unassailable being, you will be at peace. Right? So once you do this work inside, and once you really become convinced of the fact that, wow, I watch my mind, I'm not my mind. I watch my body, I'm not my body. Once you absolutely know that, then all of your concerns, the vast majority of your concerns will disappear. All right, most of our concerns are about dying and about getting sick and about how this body's going to end and whether I'm going to break it or not. Remember when I broke my leg, what a weird thought that was. I broke my body. How weird is that? That's something you don't often think that you can break. But I broke it and I felt like, gosh, I broke my favorite toy. How weird is that? Right? It really gave me that third party experience of a body because I wasn't broken. I was still me as completely. It's just that I couldn't fully express myself because I couldn't, get up to answer the phone. Right? So listen, look at his whole attitude here. I'm dead already. Right? What does it mean by saying that? It means there's an ego death. Right? There's an ego death. He's not attached to anything. What is, is. What isn't, isn't. He doesn't make things up. He doesn't imagine the past or the future. He just goes on. For him, he was, making cigarettes. So he even had a job, and he sat there making his cigarettes, selling them in Bombay with several, I don't know how many people would sit around him, but pretty good crowds would sit around him asking him questions while he went on making beaties, in the sun in Delhi or Bombay or wherever he was. But you see this just that way of life. He says, I'm dead already. Right? It's already finished. Physical death is not going to make any difference to me because I'm always just about the present. I'm always about here and now. I'm a timeless being. I'm free of desire or fear because I do not remember the past or imagine the future. Where there are no names and shapes, how can there be desire and fear? Right? Now, this thing here where he says, I do not remember the past or imagine the future. What is he saying there? Because of course he remembers the past, right? But he doesn't dwell in that memory. That memory gets written down because that's the way the mind works, right? But he doesn't return to it. It's there, and it informs him at times when it needs to, like, oh, that person's name is this. Oh, that person asked this question, right? You can't function if you don't remember the past, because he wouldn't answer any of these questions. As soon as it was asked, he wouldn't have remembered it. So that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that, yes, let the past be the past. Don't make it your present. Don't sit there and ruminate. Don't go back to it for your entertainment. Don't go hang out there because you liked a time or a place or a person. Right? So he's saying, don't imagine. Don't go live in your head. Be fully present where you are. Where there are no names and no shapes, how can there be desire and fear, right? And that's the result of knowing for sure who you are within this body mind and world complex. With desirelessness comes timelessness. I am safe because what is not cannot touch what is. You feel unsafe because you imagine danger. Of course, your body is complex and vulnerable and needs protection. Yeah, the body does, but not you, right? But not you. You are not vulnerable. You don't need to be protected. You're not in danger. Once you realize your own unassailable being, you will be at peace. You're unassailable, right? Just think about that. Unassailable. I remember being yelled at by, not recently, but quite a few years ago, being yelled at full volume by a nun for something she thought that I had done, which I hadn't done. And I remember that feeling of just, because I was caught so off guard, I wasn't pulled into it at all. I just sat there and saw her yelling at me. And I just stood there looking at her and waited till she was finished. It's like, I was like, okay. I said, we can go on at this level of energy. I said, but really, I find it difficult not to chuckle. I said, because I don't understand where it's coming from. Tell me what you need. I'm listening. I will respond. And I remember her looking at me just incredulously and actually saying to me, it was a very proud moment for me, one, because I didn't get hooked into it and I didn't feel insecure about it. And I was honest in my response. So I was very happy about that. And I told her, I says, let's just start over and just bring it down, you know, because I can't take this level seriously. And so we talked and she told me her needs. And after it was over, she said, I'm just not used to being heard by anybody around here. And I was like, wow, you see, that's our trouble. That's our trouble. We're not listening to each other. And look at the frustration that's causing. Look at the trouble that's causing. We're all living in our imagination. So she was totally inhabiting an artificial situation, because one, that was my first time meeting her, and she was yelling at me, because of an imagined thing that she heard that I was doing in the temple, but it wasn't true. So in that way, just let things meet you, but don't put your hooks out. Just let it be what it is. You know, don't don't let it get in. Don't let it cross that gulf, because it can't cross that gulf. You're on the other side of this gulf. You are pure spirit, manifesting body mind, but you're not those, right? And so remember, I'm watching television. Remember, this world is a story. It's a narrative, and that narrative is going to change. And it's not always going to be intense. It's not always going to be sad. It's not always going to be difficult. It's not always going to be uncomfortable. It's changing. Accept the change. It'll take you up. It'll take you down. but you're always going to be you, right? In the midst of all of it. Questioner, well, how can I find peace when the world suffers? Maharaj, the world suffers for very valid reasons. If you want to help the world, you must be beyond the need of help. Then all you're doing as well as not doing will help the world most effectively, right? So we have to get ourselves out of the narrative. We have to get ourselves into a position where we don't need help, and so we can give help. As long as we need help or view ourselves as needing help, and go outside of ourselves for it, then we're by necessity part of the false narrative, right? You're part of the false narrative, and so the help you can do to the world when you are not understanding the world is going to be limited. So the greatest thing you can do for the world, as a subtext here, is to realize God right now. Get it done. It's the most important thing in your life. You know, how do you treat other things that you consider to be the most important thing? So start treating your spiritual life, your spiritual practice with that same urgency, that same commitment, that same level of priority, right? The world suffers for very valid reasons. If you want to help the world, you must be beyond the need of help. Then all you're doing, as well as you're not doing, will help the world most effectively. Questioner, well, how can non-action be of use where action is needed? Maharaj, where action is needed, action happens, right? Where it's needed, it will happen. That's the thing. Non-action does not mean not moving. Non-action is being aware that God is present, and you defer to that, right? You don't sit there and think of the plan of action. You follow your inspiration in the presence, right? In that silent presence, you do the right thing because it's not ego blessed, right? It's not narrative oriented. It's fresh material coming directly from the infinite. So it's a new piece for the world. Where action is needed, action happens. Man is not the actor. His is to be aware of what is going on. That's your job. There's your job description right there. That's your job description for life. Be aware of what is going on. Not locked in a story, right? Be aware of what is going on. That's your job. His very presence is action, right? How do you know that? Because everything's constantly changing and God is everywhere present and always perfect. So his presence, his very presence is action, right? And so the actions that happen in his presence are always right action, right? The narrative you create around that action may be right or wrong, but the action itself will always be right action, right? And his presence is that action. The window is the absence of the wall, and it gives air and light because it is empty. Ooh, I like this. Be empty of all mental content. That's silent and pure mind, right? That's being a window. Be empty of all mental content, of all imagination and effort, and the very absence of obstacles will cause the reality to rush in. This is exactly why Ramakrishna described himself as a whole, because he was this absence, right? He was that absence. He says, he's empty. So he's empty of all mental content. He was always fully present. Of all imagination and effort, he had no narrative in his mind. And the very absence of obstacles will cause reality to rush in, right? If you're not holding everything at bay by thinking so hard all the time, by planning so hard, by being so busy with your ideas of what to do, then reality will get in. You'll see things as they are. They will happen in front of you. If you really want to help a person, keep away. If you are emotionally committed to helping, you will fail to help. You may be very busy and be very pleased with your charitable nature, but not much will be done. A man is really helped when he is no longer in need of help. All else is just futility. It's just part of the narrative. Just part of the world going on, right? Isn't it funny how our days are so much the same, even though look at how many hundreds of years of development we've put into them in this country. Look at all the change going on in this world. And yet, is life any different? Like I look, now I've got iPads and internet and cell phones and everything is portable. But what am I doing in the day? I'm doing the same things I always used to do, just in different ways, right? Instead of handwriting out my essays, I'm copying and pasting them with ChatGPT. I'm not. I'm kidding, but right, the same things are going on. That's something that Swami Prabhupada once said. I was talking about how much the computers had changed the world. He says, "What? Computers haven't changed the world at all." And I said, "Maharaj, how can you say that?" He says, we're still doing the same things we've always done, just in different ways. It hasn't done anything new for us. We still have to type our letters. We still have to mail them. Now we do them on a screen and they get mailed through the wires instead of on a piece of paper and mailed through the mail. But it's the same thing. Everything is the same. We're just doing it differently. So computers have not changed the world. And really, when you look at the experience of your day in life, do you feel all of this change has made much difference for us? I don't see it. You know, we carry on our day. Of course, it might be because I'm in a monastery, but it just seems the world just goes on. The externals are the externals. Your experience of being is pretty steady. It's pretty much the same. Your experience of who you are, pretty much the same, right? So this is why it's our job just to be aware of what's going on. We can start to see that sameness, and then we can start to develop on that sameness and realize, wow, I'm an absolute unchanging. How bizarre is that? Yes, everything has changed around me. My body's changed around me. My mind changes around me constantly. My circumstances are changing constantly, but everything is always happening around me. What is this? This me isn't changed. This me accepts the changes and keeps going forward, but it doesn't change. You know, when I broke my leg, I went down into a bed and the body was broken, but I could clearly experience that I was not broken. That was Lalita's big uh, aha moment that helped her mental health so significantly, right? When she stopped using I about her body or with, being taken out by that major um, stroke. At her first year was she suffered because she kept her eye in there the whole time. Oh, I can't get out of bed. I can't dress myself. I can't go to the bathroom. I can't even roll over. I'm going to be in this bed for the rest of my life. Why didn't mother just kill me? And that was her whole thinking. She was thinking as a body and mind. And then her big life-changing aha moment that I talk about always about her was when she said to herself, I realized it was my body that was broken and not me. And she said, I realized that my body has always been an obstacle that I had to use to present myself through. I had to express myself through it. Being a woman, I was constantly confronted with obstacles in this world, she said. But I made it a point to work to push past them, to find ways around them. And she says, I've realized I'm still me. My body now works differently than it's ever worked. and I now have to make adjustments for expressing me through this broken body. I'm not broken. I am the same person I've always been. And as you know, her life for the next few years was significantly better. You know, she got up and started encouraging people and got out of bed every day to make a book to go around telling jokes. So get rid of the not here, not now. Clear out your mind. Give yourself permission to be present here only, right? And observe. Observe everything very carefully. Don't think about what you're going to do with it. Don't make a plan in the middle of it. Just be. And let inspiration move you. And if it doesn't move you, don't move. Don't make yourself get up. Feel the inspiration, feel the presence, right? And let it move you out of the chair. Let it get the things done that need to get done. You stay aware of your awareness. Right? Oops. Uh-oh. Okay. So he's telling us the window is the absence of the wall, and it gives air and light because it is empty. Be empty of all mental content, of all imagination and effort, and the very absence of obstacles will cause reality to rush in. If you want to help a person, keep away. If you are emotionally committed to helping, you will fail to help. You may be very busy and may be very pleased with your charitable nature, but not much will be done. A man is really helped when he is no longer in need of help. All else is just futility. Questioner: there is not enough time to sit and wait to help for help to happen. One must do something, right? That's what our ego always tells us. You know, you sit there and you just eventually get so uneasy that you make yourself get up and do something. But he says one must do something. So Maharaj says, well, by all means, do. But what you can do is limited. The self alone is unlimited. Give limitlessly of yourself. All else you can give in small measures only. You alone are immeasurable. To help is your very nature. Even when you eat and drink, you help your body. For yourself, you need nothing. You are pure giving. You are beginningless. You are endless. You are inexhaustible. When you see sorrow and suffering, be with it. Do not rush into activity. Neither learning nor action can really help. Be with sorrow and lay bare its roots. Helping to understand is real help. Our questioner, he says, well, my death is nearing. Maharaj, your body is short of time, not you. Time and space are in the mind only. You are not bound. Just understand yourself. That itself is eternity. Wow, look at that. Just understand yourself. That itself is eternity. That's a that's a crazy statement. Just understand yourself. That itself is eternity. Wow, very, very, very cool. That's a good meditation right there. That's going to be rich. All right. Chapter 56. Consciousness arising, world arises. Oh, here's Nachiketas's question. When an ordinary man dies, what happens to him? Maharaj, according to his belief, it happens. As life before death is but imagination, so is life after. The dream continues. Wow. All right. Wow. Bummer, Christians. According to his belief, it happens. I've had this suspicion. It's actually the first time I really remember reading something like this. I had that suspicion that why do we all assume the same thing happens to everybody when we die? Not the same thing happens to everybody when we're born, right? What would make us think that the same thing would happen to us when we die? So death is going to be as individual as life is, right? Of the body. According to his beliefs, it happens. As life before death is but imagination, so is life after. The dream continues. Question. And what about the Gyani, Maharaj? The Gyani does not die. The Gyani was never born, right? That's what it is to be a Gyani, to know. Questioner. Well, he appears so to others, Maharaj, but not to himself. In himself, he is free of things, physical and mental. Right? So this is an important thing because we assume so much, and this is why awareness is the key to truth. Right? Seeing things as they are is the key to learning, the key to realization. Our realization is so difficult because we assume so much, always, constantly. We assume we're not realized. That's our biggest mistake. We assume that the world's not perfect as it is. That's a big mistake. We assume that we're the doer. That's a big mistake. We assume that we have things to do. That's an even bigger mistake, right? Just sit and listen. You'll know when to move. Just sit and be. You'll watch what needs to be done. Right? Still, you must know the state of a man who died, at least from your own past lives. Maharaj, until I met my guru, I knew so many things. Now I know nothing, for all knowledge is in dream only and not valid. I know myself, and I find no life nor death in me, only pure being. Not being this or that, but just being. But the moment the mind, drawing on its stock of memories, begins to imagine, it fills the space with objects and time with events. As I do not know even this birth, how can I know past births? It is the mind that, itself in movement, sees everything moving, and having created time, worries about the past and future. All the universe is cradled in consciousness, Mahatattva, which arises where there is perfect order and harmony, Mahasattva. As all waves are in the ocean, so are all things physical and mental in awareness. Hence, awareness itself is all important, not the content of it, right? So being aware of your awareness, being more interested in this than that, right? Being more aware of what's on this side of the senses than what is on that side of the senses. Bringing yourself inward. Awareness itself is all important, not the content of it. Deepen and broaden your awareness of yourself, and all the blessings will follow. You need not seek anything. All will come to you most naturally and effortlessly. The five senses and the four functions of the mind, memory, thought, understanding, and selfhood, the five elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the two aspects of creation, matter and spirit, are all contained in awareness. Yet you must believe in having lived before, Maharaj. Well, the scriptures say so, but I know nothing about it. I know myself as I am. as I appeared or will appear is not within my experience. It is not that I do not remember. In fact, there is nothing to remember. Reincarnation implies a reincarnating self. There is no such thing. The bundle of memories and hopes called the I imagines itself existing everlastingly and creates time to accommodate its false eternity. To be, I need no past or future. All experience is born of imagination. I do not imagine, so no birth or death happens to me. Only those who think themselves born can think themselves reborn. You are accusing me of having been born. I plead not guilty.
Maharaj, can I ask a question? So
Please.
when he says that all experience is born of imagination, this thing of experience kind of confuses me a bit because there are times I think, okay, it's in the mind, but the mind is pure mind. I mean, the self cannot, does not change. So there's experience kind of implies some kind of change. Therefore, it's of the mind and therefore it's of imagination. Is that what he's saying?
Well, the imagination is that you are involved in it.
Okay. You meaning the self.
Yes, you meaning the self. You imagine yourself to be the body, and so you then become affected by what happens to the body. You imagine yourself to be the mind, and so you believe the narratives that are going through the mind, and you place yourself under those narratives. You give them control over you. So this is the imagining. The experience, an experience is a narrative. What happened to me? What did I see? Where did I go? And you would tell the narrative. The experiencer, there's no narrative until that experiencer identifies with a memory, identifies with a body, identifies with the mind. Then there becomes an experience, a descriptive, a thing that, a narrative of what happened.
So let me understand. So if things happen, and as long as you don't think about it, like if that you because the thinking comes after the experience, after the happening.
Right. Well, the thinking happens when you give it a narrative.
Right.
Something happens, and most of the time you don't know what happened. That time that I saw those two women walking up the hill in San Francisco,
Right.
and I was writing a poem, and I wrote all about their lives because my mind provided all kinds of information about them just from the observation, but nothing that I knew, but that I accepted. That's my imagination. And so I imagined them to be this, that, and the other, and told a story about them. But the only thing I could have truthfully written on that piece of paper is that there are two women walking up the hill. That's all I knew. There's no experience there. There's no story there. There's no narrative.
But what if it's your own experience, right? It's
That's
what.
the imagination.
Okay.
Everything is your own experience.
Mm.
But experience requires past and future
Right.
projected on it in order to give it a place and meaning, right? In itself, without past and future, it has no place or meaning. It just is. And so that's for ourself with no imagination, which means no projection of past on it to describe what it means, and no projection of future on it to describe what it's for. Then it becomes the thing in itself, just the experience of isness. And
Living in the moment,
it,
just this.
yes, living in the moment but more than living in the moment, because that's easily said without understanding.
Yeah.
Living in the moment is to remove narrative
Mm.
and to be unconcerned with memory and projection,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And so it's kind it's how to talk about this. For some reason, I'm thinking of a drum. The experience of the drum. is a single experience. It's always being hit with a drumstick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the experience of the drum to somebody with a narrative going on is music,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's an infinite number of rhythms and tricks and whatnot. There's always a drummer in a song, right? And that drummer is taking a single action and producing a whole experience. But if you stick with just the drum of just what is happening,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing happening. It's just just a drum
Right.
being hit with a stick, right?
Okay.
And so it comes down to that. So our experiences, as varied as they seem, are just of five, right? They're nothing more than seeing something, hearing something, tasting something, smelling something, touching
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only five capabilities we have.
Mm-hmm.
And look how intoxicated we get at the varieties of the five, right? But when you stop and think, when you become aware, there's only five possibilities of anything in this life for me. Everything is going to be just a combination of touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing. That's it. And when you think about that, it certainly becomes less enthralling,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you start to think, okay, my experience is always going to be just of those five things. There's never going to be anything new. It's going to be those five combinations always.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you begin to think that, you begin to realize experience in and of itself is mundane. It's your imagination that makes it interesting, your projections of meaning that make it interesting. But the thing itself, not so interesting if you're paying attention, if you're paying attention to this side of the stick, to the self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what becomes interesting in the absence of experience? Well, the senses are the source of all experience. And so the senses become uninteresting. What becomes interesting? This thing that can experience all things. Yourself is capable of experiencing all things. That's interesting. Yourself is capable of infinite narratives. That's interesting, right? And so you become more interested with this end of the stick, and you find yourself to be immortal. You find yourself to be free. You find yourself to be content. You find yourself to be blissful. You see, the inner world becomes the interesting thing when we've paid attention and seen things as they are. That we're just a drum of with five heads on it. And those five heads, we know what taste is, we know what touch is, we know what smell is, we know what hearing is, we know what all the senses are one by one. And so what else is there to learn but combinations? Why be interested in combinations? In essence, they're the same, right? And so we withdraw interest from the externals and we start paying attention to the experiencer. And that's where we find all that he's talking about, this freedom, this infinity, this depth, this ecstatic essence of isness, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's stop there.